In an era of pure power and offense never seen before, Juan Gonzalez fell under the radar in the long run, but over season averages, he ranks amongst the best offensive players who ever played the game, with a bit of a complicated legacy. So let's look at the story and career of Juan Gonzalez.
Totally sports-esque. Major league.
Juan Gonzalez grew up in a rough area about 50 miles from San Juan, Puerto Rico, learning how to hit using a broomstick to hit bottle caps and corks. In the Puerto Rican Youth League, he would play with future major leaguer and jazz guitarist Bernie Williams, while they both played against Ivan Rodriguez. And by the age of 16, many scouts showed interest in Gonzalez, with his height, power, and his arm. And one of those teams interested was the Yankees. And when a Yankee scout came down to watch him, he was more impressed with Bernie Williams. And he ended up signing Williams over Gonzalez, as Williams would go on to win 4 World Series with the team and later have his number retired. But there were still many other teams interested in Gonzalez, with the finalists being Texas and Toronto. Like Toronto does in the present day, they ended up finishing second for a highly touted player, as the Rangers would sign Gonzalez for $140,000, the most ever for a Puerto Rican player at the time. Gonzalez had the nickname of Igor since he was a child. Being a fan of wrestling, his favorite was Igor the Magnificent, and one day when he was 9 years old, he told people to start calling him Igor, and well, they did. And Igor was heading to the Rangers Rookie League team in the Gulf Coast League at the age of 16, with one of his teammates being Sammy Sosa. And he dealt with some struggles hitting .240 with 57 strikeouts and no home runs in 60 games. But the Rangers still saw potential, and he improved with each year, hitting 14 home runs in single A the next year and double the amount of games, as he was also named to the League All-Star game. And the year after that, he dealt with a knee injury early in the season, which led him to only playing 77 games, as he showed some improvement. And his breakthrough season would come in 1989 when he was 19 years old. At AA, he would hit .293 with an .849 OPS and 21 home runs. And this led to him being a September call-up before he would turn 20. He played his first game on September 1st, and he went over 2, his first hit coming 3 days later, and his first home run coming on the 18th, which would be his only home run, as he hit 150 on the month. He would start 1990 in AAA, and again he had a big year, hitting 29 home runs and driving in 101, and this led to another September call-up. And after he would hit 4 home runs with an .838 OPS, he would never go back down. Coming up 2 years prior, Sammy Sosa was supposed to be the Rangers' new young center fielder, but he would be traded to the White Sox late into 1989. And 1991 would be enough to make the Rangers not regret trading Sosa. In his first full season, he would hit .264 with an .800 OPS, with 27 home runs and 102 RBIs. RBIs being a stat he was well known for, which was the second highest on the team behind Ruben Sierra, and the 7th highest in the American League. He was also the second youngest regular starter, as number 1 was a former Youth League opponent in Ivan Rodriguez, playing what was considered his first full season at the age of 19. And with the number of at-bats in his first 2 seasons, Gonzalez was not eligible for the Rookie of the Year, which he probably would have won in a weak year for the award. Either way, Gonzalez kept proving himself. 1992 was the year he became known nationally, and that's for his home runs. That year, he would hit 43 home runs, which was one more than Mark McGwire for the most in the league, the youngest player to lead the league in home runs since Johnny Bench in 1970. He also drove in 109 runners with an .833 OPS, also finishing top in slug, total bases, and extra base hits, as he took home his first Silver Slugger, the only knock on the season being his 143 strikeouts, which was the 5th highest in the league, and if he could fix that, he had MVP potential. And going into a season before free agency, he picked the right time to make that fix, declining a $14 million 4-year contract, as he felt he could get more, and he was right. At the All-Star break, he was hitting .320 with a 1.023 OPS, with 23 home runs and 60 RBIs, and this gave him his first All-Star appearance. And during the festivities, he would participate in the Home Run Derby at Camden Yards, and him and Ken Griffey Jr. would put on a show, both hitting 7 home runs in the first round, with Gonzalez becoming the first player to hit a home run into the facade of the upper deck in left field at an estimated 473 feet, along with hitting one over the green wall over the center field fence. And Griffey and Gonzalez would meet in the finals, and Gonzalez beat Griffey 5-4, obviously a little different in the totals than Home Run Derbies in the years after. Either way, and a result that even surprised him, the Derby victory, along with what he was doing in the regular season, turned him into a star. 1993 would end up being his best season. He hit .310 with a 1,000 OPS and 118 RBIs, and for the second straight year, he would lead the league in home runs with 46, while also leading in slug at .632, with his 6.5 WAR being the best in his career by a good amount, as he won his second Silver Slugger, and he finished 4th in MVP voting. In a year with many deserving candidates, this would not be the last time he finished in the top 4, and his best season coming at the right time resulted in a nice payday, as he signed a 7-year, $45 million deal with the Rangers. But the first year of his contract would be a tough one. He dealt with problems in his personal life, marrying for the 3rd time, and dealing with the death of his half-brother. And as the Rangers began playing a new ballpark, his production went down in the bigger ballpark. hitting 19 home runs in 107 games, with his OPS dropping almost 200 points. And the reason he only played 107 games being the 1994 strike. The strike is remembered for hurting the chances of many teams like the Expos, but it also took away games from players in the midst of their prime, like Gonzalez, though he was struggling. And he dealt with problems in the 95 season that was also shortened. The problems lying in his legs and back that led him to DHing in almost all the 90 games he played, hitting 27 home runs with a 915 OPS, and that led him into the seasons most remembered. At the All-Star break, he was on pace to repeat his 93 season with 22 home runs and 70 RBIs while hitting .320 with 1.032 OPS. But unlike 93, he was not selected for the All-Star team, which was a surprise. In the month the All-Star game he should have played in was held, he hit .407 with 15 home runs and a .917 slug, being named Player of the Month, while also being named Player of the Week in the first month of August, while being the only Ranger with 2 20-game hit streaks in one season. And he finished the season with a career high of 47 home runs, actually putting him in 5th place, as the home runs began to pile on league-wide. He also hit 147 RBIs, well above his average, and one behind Albert Bell for the most, while he also hit .314 with a 1.011 OPS. And despite being close, but never leading in any main categories, he would take home the MVP. And it's easy to see why many consider him to be one of the least deserving winners of all time. As just mentioned, he didn't lead in any main categories, and his 3.5 total F4 ranked 92nd in the league, while Ken Griffey Jr. and Alex Rodriguez more than doubled that. A-Rod hitting .358 for the batting title, while besting Gonzalez in OPS, while Griffey bested him in home runs and won a Gold Glove. Definitely a vote that isn't looked on fondly, though Gonzalez still had an incredible season. But ultimately, the biggest reason he won that award was he played on a playoff team. A few years after playing on a Rangers team with some of the main characters of the Steroid era, Rafael Palmeiro, Ivan Rodriguez, and Jose Canseco, it wasn't until '96 that the Rangers made the playoffs for the first time in franchise history, and Gonzalez was more than ready. Going against the Yankees in the ALDS, in 4 games, Gonzalez hit 5 home runs, drove in 9, .438 average, and a 1.375 OPS. Though the Rangers lost the series, his performance was historic, as he became the second player to homer in 4 straight postseason games, and joined Ken Griffey Jr. and Reggie Jackson as the only players to hit 5 home runs in a single postseason series. The difference being that Jackson and Griffey did so in 5 games. Gonzalez needed just 4. If there was an ALDS MVP, he may have got it even with the loss. He regressed a little in '97, and that's mainly because while playing in San Juan during the winter, he fractured a ligament in his left thumb, which kept him on the DL until May, still hitting 42 home runs with 131 RBIs and a .924 OPS as he won his 4th Silver Slugger, and he finished 9th in MVP voting while being nominated for the Roberto Clemente Award for his humanitarian work. And fully healthy, he went right back to peak form the next year. He received his second All-Star appearance after his historic first half, where he drove in 101 runners, just the second player driving 100 in the first half since Hank Greenberg in 1935. And though he wasn't as strong in the second half, he still finished with 157 RBIs, which led the league, and is the 27th highest ever and the 5th most since 1937. That along with his 50 doubles that were a surprise, as he hit .318 with a .997 OPS and the second highest WAR of his career. And for the second time, he won MVP, more deserving than in '96, though you could make a case for Alex Rodriguez again with his league-leading WAR, along with the 2 shortstops, with one being on the best team. But there was a better case here, as he became the first Latino to win 2 MVPs, and the 16th to win 2 in a 3-year span, as he again was on a playoff team, but he couldn't replicate the magic of his last playoff series, as his performance matched the rest of the team, as the Rangers scored just 1 run, as they were swept by the Yankees. And Gonzalez was strong to close out the century, with another strong first half, and before the All-Star game, he announced that if fans did not elect him to the starting lineup, he would refuse an invitation, and though he was deserving, that led him to not getting an invite. Gonzalez doing so as he felt players and managers should vote for the starters instead of the fans, as he would go on to finish 1 home run shy of his 4th straight season of 40 home runs, as he drove in 128 with the highest average of his career at .326, with a .980 OPS, as he would finish 13th in MVP voting. And at this point, Gonzalez was well on his way to the Hall of Fame, with his 2 MVPs and the fact that he was doing this before he turned 30, and that led Tigers GM Randy Smith to give up 6 players to acquire him, with Danny Peterson and Greg Zahn also part of the trade, the first 2-time MVP traded since Dale Murphy in 1990. And the real gamble was, Smith hoped they could get Gonzalez for the long term, as this appeared to be a 1-year rental. And soon after the trade, the Tigers offered him an 8-year, $151.5 million contract, a chance to be the highest paid player ever, which he would turn down. A main reason being that he did not like the dimensions of the new Comerica Park, Originally, the new park was 345 feet down the left field line and 395 in left center, a problem they fixed with a bullpen being added later, though it's still a large park. And Gonzalez would struggle in Detroit. Being hampered by injuries, he played just 115 games, hitting 22 home runs with 67 RBIs and a .289 average. The Tigers tried to trade him at the deadline, and they almost had a deal with the Yankees, but they couldn't work things out, as Gonzalez played just one season for the Tigers before becoming a free agent, with teammates even feeling that Gonzalez would have been a Tiger for a long time if the fences were brought in from the beginning. And being a free agent for the first time, he didn't go too far by signing with Cleveland, where he would have a bounce-back year. At the All-Star break, he had 23 home runs and another 83 RBIs, while hitting .347 with a 1.031 OPS. And since he was voted in as a starter deservingly, he attended the All-Star game, and he had an average over 300 in every month of the season outside of September, where his cold streak to end the year kept him from winning another RBI title as Brett Boone beat him by 1, as he would finish the year with 140 RBIs, 35 home runs, a .325 average, which was 1 behind his career high, and a .960 OPS, as he would finish 5th in MVP voting. And going back to Gonzalez being an RBI machine, through 11 seasons, he had 1,263 RBIs, which was the most in that time frame by 40. And the one in second was Jeff Bagwell, and he had over 1,000 more plate appearances than him, as did Rafael Palmeiro in third, his 392 home runs in the time also being the 6th highest. In the postseason in 2001, he would return to his 1996 form by hitting .348 with a .739 OPS and 2 home runs over 5 games, though they fell short to the 116-win Mariners. And again, he was a free agent. And again, he was going back to where it started, in Texas, signing a 2-year, $24 million contract. And over those 2 years, it was the injuries that came back to bite him. In the 4th game of the 2002 season, he tore a ligament in his right thumb, and he would only play 70 games that year, hitting .282 with 8 home runs. And despite a slow start in 2003, he would regain form, with his 12 home runs at the start of May being a tie for the Major League lead. And halfway through July, he had 24 home runs, a .572 slugging percentage, and 70 RBIs, which all ranked in the top 10. As it appeared, he was back in the form he was in Cleveland, but he would tear his calf muscle on July 19th, which would end the season. And as the Rangers were looking for their younger players to have more chances, he was granted free agency, where he would sign with the Royals. And again, injuries would derail him, with a back problem that ended the season in May. And again, he made a return the following year, going back to Cleveland. In the first batter 2005, while running out a ground ball, he suffered a major injury to his hamstring, and he was out for the season after just 1 at-bat. And things would only get worse for Gonzalez from there. That's really in regards to the accusations against him with the publishing of Jose Canseco's book Juiced in 2005. In that book, Canseco named numerous players whom he accused of taking steroids, and 3 of them played on the Rangers in the early 90s in Rafael Palmeiro, Ivan Rodriguez, and Juan Gonzalez. The problem in this sense being that Canseco didn't really have any concrete evidence, though there had been accusations against Gonzalez for a few years at that point. Back in 2001, his name was mentioned in the Mitchell Report. That year, an unmarked bag in the Indians' team luggage was detained by customs in Toronto for supposedly containing steroids. Gonzalez's assistant said the bag belonged to personal trainer Angel Prisano, and he would say the bag belonged to Gonzalez. The trainer, who had links to numerous Latino players, said that though the bag was not his, he knew the contents of it, and he claimed that there were not steroids in the bag. Neither of them would be arrested, and Gonzalez said he cut ties with him after the incident, which led him to being banned from all 30 MLB parks in which the public could not go. And though Gonzalez always denied using steroids, that incident followed him for years. And what hurt him even more was in 2007, Rangers owner Tom Hicks also speculated that he took steroids, noting how his body broke down after they re-signed him in 2002 because he felt that he was off the steroids, as his final 4 seasons had at least one injury that caused him to miss many games or an entire season. And that ground ball is how his MLB career ended. As though he played well in the Atlantic League in 2006 and got a spring training invite from the Cardinals in 2008, injuries would limit him in both situations, as that would be the end of his playing career. And an MLB career that saw him hit 434 home runs, drive in 1,404 runners with a .295 average and a .904 OPS, winning 6 Silver Sluggers and 2 MVPs. More impressive when you look at the per 162 game numbers. As per 162 games, he averaged 42 home runs, drove in 135 runners with a 3.7 WAR. The home run averages ranking 9th all time, and the RBI totals ranking 6th, with only him and Albert Bell in the top 10 without their careers starting before 1940. Even with the career cut short by injuries, he has a borderline Hall of Fame resume, with the traditional stats voters look at. But the accusations gave him no chance. He received 5.2% in his first ballot in 2011, then 4% the next, which kept him off future ballots. And though he's denied taking steroids, he has little chance of ever making the Hall of Fame. The four main characters of those early 90s Rangers teams are interesting in defining an era. Jose Canseco openly admitted taking steroids while accusing the other three players. And while those three have Hall of Fame resumes, especially Palmeiro and Rodriguez, it was only Rodriguez who survived them, Palmeiro being hit the hardest from Canseco's book, as he dealt with booze as he became the third player to hit 500 home runs and record 3,000 hits. Gonzalez reaching at least one of those milestones if he would have stayed healthy. But in the long run, both Palmeiro and Gonzalez had a similar fallout. No definitive proof of their usage, though likely, and either way, they had no chance at the Hall of Fame after. And in an era of an incredible offense, with the heaviest of hitters taking the spotlight, it's easy for two guys who consistently hit in the 40 home run, 100 RBI range to fall under the radar, especially playing on small market teams, and Gonzalez being a quiet player. But looking back at the era, Gonzalez is still one of the best from it. Though he may not have deserved both MVPs, he was just one of three to take home multiple MVPs in the decade, the others being Frank Thomas and Barry Bonds, with him winning the home run crown in 2 straight years and putting up RBI numbers not seen since the early 20th century, as he was a huge reason the Rangers were able to make the playoffs for the first time, as he still leads in a number of categories for the Rangers, turning down the invitation to be inducted into the Team Hall of Fame in 2013 because of Tom Hicks' comments, but he would later accept 2 years later, as he was and still is a legend in his home country of Puerto Rico, playing in leagues there, working in the community, and later managing the national team to gold medals in 2018 and 2019, being overshadowed by numerous historic players in his time, but still one of the best and defining players of his time. And you can watch my video about Rafael Palmeiro, who Gonzalez played with, and faced a similar story.